So, hello and welcome, and I hope that you are all in the mood for today's webinar. I promise I try that my content is even better than this solo, and I'm super excited to have you all here and to talk a bit about one of my most favorite topics, which is capability mapping. So you're watching a webinar by Intersection Group. We are a not-for-profit association with the only goal to help people create better enterprises. And we believe that capabilities are one of the main puzzle pieces if done right. All too often, we see flawed approaches to capability maps. I think there's a lot of differences we have in our approach compared to maybe approaches that are better known from other authorities like Bespoke and TOGAF and so on. I will talk about this in an instant. Administrative details, whenever a question comes up, please post it to the chat. I will keep an eye on it. And every now and then, if it's suitable, I try to reply to your question, of course. Slides and the video will be available soon. Tomorrow on Saturday, you will all get the slides and the videos. And please keep it interactive. Post your questions and let's have some fun on the topic of capabilities. Of course, we are super proud that in summer we launched the EDGY capability modeling guidelines. So if you scan this barcode here or you go to enterprise.design and search for capability guidelines, you will find it in an instance. There's a lot of content and practical guidance on how to structure them and how to actually use them as a business construct. So maybe one of the key differentiators we believe our capability approach compared to others maybe that we want to bring it back to where it belongs, to business. It must become established, widely used concept in strategic management. If you go to a business school, if you study business administration, not design, they call it business administration, usually you don't learn much. That is really a pity because the origin of the construct was in the 50s. Penn wrote some papers about resource-based planning. And 15 years ago, maybe around that, some communities closer to IT, enterprise architecture, found it again and made it an IT construct. So if we are honest, still it's not really there. So we don't really code, and we want to change this with our capability approach. And we have some differences. We believe some major differences compared to other approaches. But what's exactly the symptom we want to tackle with capabilities? And what I see in I would say all companies I know, is that they struggle with executing the purposes. Strategy to execution. We are not alone with this slogan. It's a big topic. How can we convert mission statement, some fluffy why, purpose, whatever strategy statement into projects and realization, into operations? And that's a big topic. All companies I know struggle with this topic. And we want to position us. And what we also see is that there are many different disciplines working on the how. Service designers, IT, software architects, whatever kinds of engineers, organizational designers. We design organizational structures, which is closer to the how. We design IT system, which is the how. Processes maybe, which are not really related to what's going on in reality. So it's a mess. Enterprises still are a mess. And what we want to change, we want that all projects are aligned. Organizational structures, IT structures are aligned. So you start with capability first. So what is it? Related to a why. We're talking about this in an instance. And then you should derive the project. Sounds obvious. Other authorities also claim to do that. I will talk about this. So that's what we want to tackle with that. And I have two sections in this webinar here and also in the capability guidelines. And the first section is how to structure them. For me, it's quite astounding that if you go to the internet and to existing bodies of knowledge, there's not so much practical advice on how to actually design a capability map, how to find the right granularity, what belongs together, how to create a layout. I've seen so many weekly layouted capability maps. And I have not found much on the internet that provides practical guidance for beginners. We want to change that. So we have in the guidelines, we have a lot of guidance on how to do it actually and how to do the elicitation. So that's the first part. And the second part is more about how to align purpose with investment, how to bring it to the business side, how to connect it to the purpose element in EDGY, how to connect it to organizational design, to organizational structures, how to use heat mapping techniques, business-related heat mapping techniques. Where are we good at? Where should we invest to get better? And that approach. This will be the second section of today's talk. Let's see how far we can get. Probably we cannot cover the full range of the capability guidelines, so feel free to go to enterprise.design and search for capability, and you can find them. And after the show, you can browse them and talk to us and come back with any feedback and questions if you want. And we have the first question. Oh, Douglas, and I know you from LinkedIn, so welcome to this webinar. In your comparison to other capability guidance not being aligned to business, is this related to their guidance or related to how and who owns the capability management execution? Interested in understanding how to merge approaches from best. Yeah, that's I will be talking about that in an instance. For me, there are some fundamental flaws in existing bodies of knowledge that may be blockers that business people accept them as a business topic. So I have a couple of slides about this one. In summary, we at Intersection Group, we believe that design should become part of management. So what we see, we have these classical management schools. It's about decision management. It's about microeconomics, leadership, big decisions, but they are not designers. And we should change that and bring design to management, and capabilities are one of the fundamental concepts to do that. But I have a couple of details where I will go to more detail. Why we believe that some guidance from other authorities may not be that helpful. So let's dive into how to structure a capability map. There are a couple of definitions out there, also TOGAF, bespoke definitions, and maybe others, and they are pretty similar. And so maybe our definition is not really very different. So for us, it's what we are able to do by orchestrating people and assets. So we, like others, think of a capability as a business module. I like to call it a more organic business module. So not like in this picture here, which looks more like a Lego brick, more an engineered component. You cannot really engineer capabilities, but you want to define a boundary. And inside this boundary, you put all the stuff you need to create a well-defined output, like a serviceable track in this example. So you may have a capability track maintenance, and you need a group of people with a certain skill, some workers that are able to do track maintenance. And you have a process, so they need to, and then they need some gravel and a digger, some machines, maybe an application trackinator that tells them where to maintain the track and so on. So think of it as an orchestration of people and assets. Data could be an asset, and there are all kinds of assets out there. And the idea here, and I like this metaphor of organic business modules quite well. You cannot only design capabilities from the top down. There's always also some emergent co-creation, emergent capability design. So the people working inside of a capability, hopefully, are empowered and creative to also shape the inner side. But you should design a boundary like a bed, a garden bed. You say, okay, that belongs together and that's distinctive. So in that case, there are modules, components, may sound a bit too technical. And inside in this component, you have people, assets, and processes to create well-defined outputs. But think of them as an organic thing. You need to co-create them with the people inside. They know what's going on in the capability. That's also part of the EDGY design process. Connect top-down capability design, what belongs together, with bottom-up. Involve the people working in the capability. I think that's the message here. So first, people co-design the boundaries. And like in a garden bed, they may not be strict. So sometimes some weeds grow and some plants grow across the boundaries, but you can start off it. So what belongs together? Well-defined distinctive outputs. That's also not new. Every capability should have an output that is clearly distinctive from outputs of other capabilities. Together, what belongs together? Cohesion. If you're coming from business architecture, cohesion is an important concept coming from in engineering. And the reason why you want to have this kind of cohesion is that you need this loose coupling, and again, a technical concept. If you have cohesion and if you focus on what belongs together and distinctive, what you get is adaptivity. For that reason, this kind of modularizing the business, thinking in these bubbles, boundaries, garden beds, if you want, is the key to adaptivity. Maybe one reason why the agile community was not super successful is that agility or adaptivity is a structural property of enterprises, not only a cultural and a way of working topic. So we believe that this way of thinking, bringing together what belongs together, clear accountabilities, you don't want to have redundancies and so on, is a key concept on the way to adaptive organizations. If only business people would use capabilities as the blueprint for the organizational structure. So if you are closer to organizational design, and maybe you are not familiar with capabilities, the topic is not really present in the organizational design community, which is a pity. We want to change that. We want to move it away from the IT space, business architecture, enterprise architecture, still very IT heavy, to the OD community, to the management community. And for that reason, we have to change some 1, 2, 3 things we believe fundamentally compared to other bodies of knowledge. And one thing is, how can I define if the grouping should be around an object? So think about a capability, maintain power lines, maintain some electrical appliances or devices, whatever, like this worker here. In that case, you could say maintaining a power line, or building power lines, maintaining power lines. You structure it around the object of power lines. But on the other hand, and that's not allowed according to other bodies of knowledge, you should also make an intentional design decision when you decompose a capability by activity. I like this example of logistics. That's an activity. So this lady here, she works in a warehouse. She has to do a logistics, maybe for many different types of assets. So it's a really good idea to call a capability logistics and not warehouse asset management. That's not helpful. And a key factor for us, if you want to bring capability to the business side, because in that situation, you need to speak natural language. So what other bodies of knowledge propose to call everything and structure it around objects may stem from an object-oriented thinking that was very present in the 90s or so. We believe that's a fundamental flaw. And one of the reasons why capabilities from the enterprise architecture, business architecture departments do not make it to the business side. And that's really a pity. It's really a pity. So our first advice, keep a natural language. And if there's an activity and you should group it around an activity, do it. And the reason why you do it is specialization. So if an asset like a power line is so special that to maintain it, you need totally different skills, workers, machines, then it's a clue that maybe you should decompose and maintain power lines as a separate capability, to maintain a track, to maintain railway station, whatever. So if the objects, and that's typically in the railway business, you have very different people skills you need for maintaining. In logistics, it's different. And there are many, many other examples where the specialization is in the activity. So what is it? Skills. Which skills are similar? Okay, so that's maybe one thing. And the second major difference to other bodies of knowledge is that we believe that capabilities cannot be really separated from flow. And EDGY, for example, we don't have the concept of value streams. If you're coming from business architecture, I know it's a big topic there. I mean, what we're talking about is a flow. In EDGY, we have a flow relationship. So the first advice is, if you try to start a capability mapping or elicitation exercise with a group of people, start with product creation, and work backwards the flow of capabilities you need to deliver passenger transport. That's a product, the purple passenger or freight transport. So these are maybe two main products of our railway company. And then ask yourself, okay, what's in sequence maybe? We need somehow the capability to drive a passenger train. We need the capability to have a railway station ready to service it. We need to prepare the train. We need to do the shunting, ticket sales. So you go back a sequence in time. And that's a good way to find level 1, level 2 capabilities. And so in that case, what you do, you design from the product inside out. So you start from, okay, let's assume that's the product, and go back this flow. In EDGY, we call it flow. We don't have value streams for reasons, but it's similar. You could say it's a value stream if you like. We don't like, but some people like it. Call it a value stream if you want. We don't call it that way. And then you design from the outside in. So that's the realm of service designers, product designers, to decide, we want to do passenger transport or a digital product and so on. Of course, you have product, you have service designers, and they do some customer research. Passengers, what do you need? So you design from the outside in to the product. On the other side, you design from the inside out. And in EDGY, you meet in the intersection, in the product intersection. So the first advice when you start from a structural point of view, follow the flow to product creation. And the reason why we do that, it's the easiest way to find high-level capability families, so the high-level thing. It's a scaffolding of the process model. In our thinking, capabilities and the capability structure drive the structure of your process model. I know today most companies have a process management department, and they have their process structure, and that's something completely different compared to enterprise architects' capabilities. And that's where the problems start, because the process management people go to business, want to model their process groups, and then we have the enterprise architects. I have these nice capabilities, and then we have these typical wars between process managers. Their process models are never up to date and are always not really connected to reality. We also know that. And then we have the enterprise architects with their strange everything management capabilities. And then we have the business people, and they still think in the organizational hierarchy. So that's the reality. We don't have one structure of the business in the heads of the business people that shape their business each and every day. And if you do that, follow the flow to product creation. As a consequence, if you derive your organizational structure from your capabilities, that leads to stream-aligned organizations, which is a trend of today. So follow the value stream if you're closer to that, and everything is fine. Which is maybe only one part of the coin. And the other part of the coin is adaptivity, because if you only go with the flow, and if you don't look cross flows, team topologies, if you know this concept, they have the platform teams in the world of software. It's the same idea. First step is follow the flow, and then look of what can I reuse. But we want to combine both efficiency, flow. Optimize for flow brings efficiency, but not adaptivity. Modularization, clear modules, components, brings this modularization. We want to have both, and that's the idea. And the second, how can we do that? Maybe that's the second step is, okay, why not discuss which capabilities can be reused across flows? And we could discuss, shunting for sure. Shunting, why not model it as a cross-functional support capability, however you call it? It's a reused capability. You need to discuss, okay, can we use the same shunting device for passengers and freight trains? Probably you can. I think Austrian Railways does it that way. Again, it's about specialization. If the same shunting facility and the same worker is able to do the shunting for both products, then it's a good idea to reuse it and have only one capability, only one shunting facility, and so on. And then maybe driving the train. Yeah, but that I added a question mark here. So the discussion may be, is it really similar to drive a train by night? Can the same train driver run passenger trains and night trains? Are the locomotives the different types? Is it possible? So my personal railway knowledge was not good enough to make these decisions, probably, I would say. But that's exactly the kind of discussion you need. Yeah? If you want to have reuse, you need to ask yourself, can we reuse the skills? Can the same person, the same group of people drive a day, a passenger in the night train? And if, yeah, then remove this passenger. Maybe, okay, now I have a shared capability. And if you do that consequently, only these 3 steps. So first, what belongs together? Maintaining a track. Okay, everything that has to do with track maintenance belongs together. Logistics. In that case, we group everything around an activity. Fine. Yeah? So first step, modularization. Then you follow the flow to product creation, and then you look again and what can we reuse. So that's the way, the best way to find these top level capabilities. And maybe another very, from our point of view, underestimated topic is the topic of terminology. Yeah? Not many people I know, business enterprise architects, are nerdy enough or passionate enough, at least in my subjective assessment, to work hard on terms. And we all know terminology can be different. So our advice here, if you want to make a change, dive deeper than you expect. Yeah? Try to establish a glossary, make it a team effort. Bring what Abby covered, the amazing Abby covered. If you don't know this book, please get it. She's amazing. The only book is about the mess we have in our heads and also in our business architecture designs, because we are not clear about terms. And the root of all this design is information architecture, is terminology, is glossary. Yeah? Don't accept poorly defined concepts. I've had projects where we worked 2 weeks only on a term, and after the term we found out that we should merge 2 departments because they were doing 70% of the same time, of the same things. They just called it differently. So don't underestimate terminology. Introduce new terms with care. Vigorous verbs, yeah, strong verbs. Don't call everything management. I've seen so many capability maps. Vigorous verbs. What is it really? Is it really tennis racket management if you want to describe a service in tennis? Or is it really is it really human resource management? Okay, that maybe sound. Introduce new terms with care. Yeah, so maybe this one here. Use the language of the business on the one hand, and on the other side, start to work with them. Balance that. Don't introduce it with brute force, new terms. Try to be consistent and get this book. I don't get any commission to sell this book. This is amazing. Yeah, and then after you read that, you will get a feeling about how important terminology is for designing in general and for capability design in particular. And maybe the final aspect, more on the structural aspects of capabilities, is how can I design a map enterprise on one page? Yeah? So what you want to have an overview of an enterprise, maybe of a business division, and on this picture you may have hundreds of bubbles. So it's really tough to create it in a way that people like to look at. So one thing is, of course, layouting. The other thing, our advice is use the 2 dimensions you have wisely. So use something, if you model something on top, this usually means depends on, yeah, like here. We have depends on. So maybe the operations, you have train companies and they run the trains fueling. So that the actual operations, of course, depends on railway infrastructure management. First, you need to have an infrastructure. Then you need to, then you are able to operate the trains on top of it. What I usually do is customer facing on top. So customer facing capabilities like sales, like services, railway station services, freight terminal services. Whenever you're in contact to a customer, I typically model it on top in order to connect it better and make visible. Okay, at the end we have capabilities to create products we deliver via certain channels. I typically do that here, as you can see here on top. And then, of course, you have time. Yeah? You have a sequence of time, like you have it here in passenger services. Now, first, the passenger needs some passenger information. I need a capability to provide the train schedule, and it's really complicated topic in a railway company. Then they buy a ticket, sell ticket, and then they go to a railway station. So this sequence of time is also quite frequently a reason why you use the layout. But be aware, you have only 2 dimensions and several criteria. Yeah? But we also see here passenger trains and night trains and freight trains. So these are product categories. So in that case, we made the intentional decision that within the operational capabilities, we decompose further by product groups, not by sequence of time, because that has the highest possible cohesion. And then we have another depends on some shared capabilities. So shunting, as we've seen before, is a shared capability. Driving the train, okay, finally we made the decision using this flow diagram, if you remember. And then we have a depending on relationship. Typically, something stacking something above something means depends on. That's what people typically expect. And on the right side, we suggest, and it's also in the guidelines, to have support and change capabilities. Support are pretty common. Everybody has it, like human resources, facility management, whatever. So these are capabilities needed in the core capabilities. And maybe something that is not so common is to have change capabilities. That's also one of our advice. It's super powerful if you make visible and have a category of capabilities different from support, that are there for change. That way you can say, okay, where to invest? How much do we invest in supporting run the business? And what do we actually invest in innovation, in research development, in future enterprise design, product management, and so on? That says a lot about the company. So if you invest more in innovation and make it visible to management, later on you can measure resource-based management for each capability, how much you invest there. So having this separation between support and change, make visible what is it, makes complete sense. And it's also practical advice in our capability guidelines. Okay, a couple of questions here. Yeah, okay, Adam, that's a good one. How do you deal with instances of the same capability executed by different business entities in different ways? It depends. It's not an easy one. On the one hand, you may have geographic reasons for that. Sometimes you have a capability and you need to perform it in Europe and in USA. If you're a global and that can happen. Of course, then you have differences and you don't want to centralize everything. In other situations, standardization makes complete sense. But it depends on the type of company. If you're working in a creative environment, maybe you want to have more freedom, less rigor from the top down. But if you're in repetitive companies, if you need to produce 10,000 cars a week, processes, standardization is king. So it depends on the type of business you are in. If you're in a creative software development and so on, you cannot standardize, guarantee that every branch of your global software development company performs in exactly the same way. So it's a matter of the domain, of the culture of the business, of geographic aspects. That would be my answer. Okay, that was the question. Okay, and that completes the first section. Some structural advice. If you go to the capability guidelines, there's more advice, so take your time to browse through it. Please come back with any questions on LinkedIn, and we have a Slack channel. If you're interested, message me on LinkedIn. If you have questions, want to be involved, provide feedback, take your time to read them. Maybe the second chapter is even more exciting. It was also a bit new to me. I'm also coming from this enterprise architecture space. But I work together with Jim Dowling, Capable Company. He has 20 years of experience in doing capability mapping with top-level executives. So he actually used them at the boardroom at large US companies. So a lot of content comes from his side of this section. And I think this section is about how to actually use it as a business construct, to use it for heat mapping, to use it for strategic analysis, like heat mapping techniques. That's pretty common, but how to use the right criteria and how to actually connect investments with purpose. So now we are talking about what do we want? What the big why, mission, vision, strategy. In EDGY, it's green. That's in our identity facet. What do we want? Who are we? Purposes. What's our strategy? What are our goals? You can think about what do we want. And the other question is, what do they want? Our customers, our partners, our owners, maybe. What is what the ecosystem expects from us? We should not ignore that, because otherwise we would go bankrupt quite soon, of course. And the consequence and capabilities try to bring this together and ask, okay, what do we need to be capable of doing? Which capabilities do we know that are helpful to pursue our purpose and are helpful to create the products our customers really need? So in EDGY terms, and if you're not familiar with EDGY, take a time to look at enterprise design. Follow us there's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, on our webpage. There are upcoming webinars. In EDGY, we have the identity facet, and the core element, the outcome element here is purpose. What's our purpose? Goals, goal hierarchy, purpose hierarchy. What is it what we want to get done as a railway company in Austria? Let's verbalize it, formalize it in a kind of a purpose hierarchy. I have an example in a second. And the other thing is task. What do they want? What is it what the passengers really need? What are their demands? We are in the user experience domain there, in the service design domain. And it's no surprise that we only need capabilities somehow to get closer to a purpose and to come closer to the tasks of the people. And then, and maybe that's the reason why I created this shapes here a bit smaller, which organizational structure we need, which processes we need, which IT assets, which hardware assets, which raw material we need for this capability is a question we should discuss afterwards. So maybe some people say, okay, let's start with why. You could also start with, okay, what do they want? Look at the market. You could do it both ways. And you could also start with capabilities existing if you're an existing capability. But typically you say, okay, what do they want? What do we want? What do they want? Then maybe you start with capability design. Let's not get too deep into processes and all the details. Let's not discuss organization before we are clear about what belongs together. And that's a fundamental change if we could make it happen. It's a vision. It's happening nowhere today. Why? Because managers want to be in charge and to think in their organizational structure. With EDGY, with our naming conventions, is trying to make it co-creative, with removing management, introducing artificial language, calling everything management. What we really want to do is to make capabilities the number one construct in management and business design. And number two, organizational design. Why? Because that removes all the politics. Organizational design, restructuring departments is always done by brute force, by power, not by design. So what would happen if only we could say capability first, organization second? So that's, we believe, a big change we could do if we manage. We haven't done it yet. If we can create guidelines and if we find ways to bring the super powerful concept of capability to business people. But how to do that? So that's maybe a next aspect. You have a group of people and they're very different. You have senior leaders, they have their goals, they have their interests. You have middle managers, and quite often they have conflicts and they have resistance to change. They have their own concerns. They want to keep their silos. I've seen that everywhere. So the middle managers are a bit problematic if you want to really have a broad co-design. And what you really need is the knowledge of the business experts. So when you create a capability model, do it in iterations. Maybe start with reading existing content. You could ask LLMs. In the guidelines, we have some example prompts. So if you're new to a domain, we recommend use LLMs and ask more specific questions to get a first idea what's going on in the railway industry. And you will get a sound first model, so you can kill the blank page. It's powerful as a first start, yeah. But co-creating capability is a team sport, and you are successful and your work is done when all of the people are aligned on the same understanding of capabilities, and that can take a year, and that's full of conflicts. So you need all your social power, you need to influence senior leaderships and so on to align the people who know it. They're business experts. They know what's going on each and every day. Usually I do it bottom up. Yeah? You start here and then you go bottom up. You talk to 5, 6, 10 seasoned business experts, people with the gray hair. They've been around for decades. They know what's going on. They know the problems. Maybe senior leaders, they don't know exactly what's going on. So usually it has some benefits if you start bottom up, yeah, and get a sound idea, run iterations between the business experts, and then you will get an understanding what's going on in the as-is state. Yeah. You don't have a vision where we could go, probably usually from the business. Sometimes you can, yeah, but start with an as-is model, understand what's going on, and then you will learn a bit about politics. And as soon as you feel ready, start to bring in the middle managers. You need them. You need them because changing capabilities, changing accountabilities, future state capability design is always done by managers making big decisions. At the end, it's a change in the org chart and so on. That means politics, that means resistance. So if you go from the bottom up, start with the business experts, take your time until you have a sound understanding also about the political relationship, and then be really careful when you go to the middle managers. Go to them when you are ready and understand a bit about the relation between people. So what I usually do is draw a power and influence map. Yeah? So be really careful when you talk to them. And it can be really tough if you do it bottom up. Most of my time I did it bottom up, and it can be really tough to align them if you don't have the management support by the CEO. Yeah, so starting bottom up, most of us have to do it bottom up. If you're an enterprise architect, usually you don't have the mandate by the CEO. We are not there yet. Let's be honest. Yeah. Jim, the guy the co-author of the capability guidelines, often started top down, and that was really powerful. He has the mandate by senior leaderships, and they said, okay, Jim, I want you to design this change, and we need to change. And if you have the senior leadership support, then they can deal with the resistance of the middle managers. So try to find a way somehow. Yeah, if you move from here to the middle managers, and then you find, oh, there's resistance, conflicts. Oh my God, yeah, be careful with these people, and try somehow maybe to get a date, a coffee with them. That can be really tough if you are closer to the idea, and try to get support to help you with these conflicts. It can take some time, but it's the only chance to make the change happen. So now we are not talking capabilities as an IT construct like drawers. Yeah, it's something we need to manage our application portfolios. We are talking about capabilities as for redesigning the organizational structure of a company and the IT structure. It's a consequence of that. And that makes capabilities a really exciting concept. Yeah? If you are aware that you need to deal with the structural aspects, as discussed in the first section, and with the politics. The strength here is that you separate it. Yeah? Let's only talk capabilities. We don't talk about organizational structures. You won't be removed. No. We're just talking about, does it belong together? Yeah, it's not a reorganization yet. Yeah, so people are clever enough to understand what it could mean if you say, okay, these capabilities belong together. But that means that you need to have some management support and so on. So you need to have all your social skills ready to deal with this change in the future. Yeah. Okay, so Douglas, what kind of roadblocks can you speak to when capabilities are not at the enterprise level, but at various business units? I mean, it makes complete sense to make a capability map for each business unit. And if you are a big corporation like General Electric, you have quite autonomous business units that may be seen as enterprises. And then typically you have shared services, some capabilities you want to share across those business units. That can make complete sense. And again, that depends on the type of company, and it depends of the level of centralization the senior leaders want to have. The topic of more or less centralization, if you're a global organization, is a big topic in itself. But capabilities help you to model that, but it depends, of course, by the decisions and by the will of the people on top of the company. So we are deep in organizational design topics here. So in modeling, you can model it either way, but it depends on culture and type of company. I'm not sure if this reply is satisfactory, but hopefully. Okay, and then so this section was more about how to run a broad elicitation process. You need to align all of those people. Otherwise, your map is not accepted. We want to have them hanging on the wall on every office. It should replace the org chart. I've never seen that. It's only in the enterprise architecture department. So our vision is powerful, but still a vision. We must be honest here. So that's what this section is about. And the next section is more about how can we use capabilities for benchmarking, to find out where are we good at. Now it's a business construct. So let's assume after 1 year of capability guidelines, you may have alignment on an as-is capability map. As-is is not so political, but it can still take a year. You need 10, 20 business experts, managers, iterations and so on, and you're done when it's accepted by the people because they have co-created it. Co-creation is key. So let's assume you have an as-is capability map and a wide agreement. As a second step, what you can do is, where are we good at this? And then you can use all kinds of benchmark capabilities. That's also other bodies of knowledge also say, okay, you do benchmarking. But typically we use IT benchmarks. Is the IT, do we have outdated IT? Is the IT up to date? Do we have technical debt? So this typically enterprise IT benchmarks, but it gets really powerful when you benchmark it compared to competitors. So if you try to run some LLM prompts, we have some in the guidelines, to compare it to competitors. Mystery shopping, social media, how are they doing? What are their strengths? So what you really want to see is, how are we performing compared to our competitor, as a first way to find a strategy, to know where to play and how to win. So, and then you can do some benchmarks, and typically we start with an overall performance with some basic indicator by gut feeling. So you can run interviews with group of people, management, to come up with an enterprise-wide agreement, more or less agreement. In the guidelines, we have also some ideas how to run workshops on this topic. And the first step is maybe to have a 5-grade scale, 5 from dark green to dark red, between best in class and well below average. So where are we good at? Today we are really good in train driving. I don't know what that could mean. It's only an example. Distributing energy. We're really super efficient here. Booking Europe. That's where we are good. IT always sucks. So probably most companies will have red here because always too expensive. I'm guilty also coming out from IT. So some red dots here. So coming up with the first honest, it's not easy to run this process, but you can have iterations and groups of people. Start with a basic indicator. Don't overdo it. Not super complicated math here. But when in doubt, if there's no agreement and we say, no, we are good here, and other people say, no, we are not, we are average, or we are super weak, we are well below average. And if you have a fundamental disagreement, then you can dive deeper into more specific benchmarking criteria. Why do you think we are not as good as competition? For efficiency reason, we are way slower. It's way more expensive. Our research has shown that this process is way more expensive than our competitors. Customer service, our response times are completely out of bounds. Business continuity, we have problems running this process with the required service level, and so on. So use this more detailed business-oriented benchmarking criteria to understand where potential problems, why people say, no, we are not good at it. So that's the as-is state. So use heat mapping techniques for business-related questions to say, are we good at? We are not so good at. Maybe we need to optimize the cost or the sustainability, depending on the purpose. So some companies say, I don't care about sustainability. Maybe we don't need to assess that we are polluting the environment and so on. So it depends. And it's also in the guideline, the criteria you choose, where to look at, says a lot about your purpose and a lot about identity, who you are. So choose the criteria when you say, oh, we are not good at it, in this capability wisely, related to your company type and company. Yeah. So now we have as is. Yeah. Let's assume we have the perfect as is capability map. No, there's never a perfect capability map. Okay. And we already have a benchmark, red, green, yellow, more or less wide agreement on, that's right, we should. So that's the first step, as is. Yeah. And the second question is it a problem? Compared to, maybe it's okay if we are average in this capability. Maybe we don't need to be best in class in every capability. You need to focus. Strategy, vision, mission, strategy is about focusing where to invest, where do we need to get better. So use your capabilities to align your vision, your strategy, your strategic goals. So in this example, we start from a vision statement, and in EDGY, we have this purpose hierarchy. Yeah? So this railway company could say, okay, we design and operate the railway system of the future. What does it mean? Reliable railway infrastructure, safety for passengers and employee. We want to be the number one passenger. So that's a clear focus on a certain product. We strive for efficiency and cost effectiveness. So these are typical higher level goals, purposes, however you call it. That's what's important to us. That's coming from management typically to steer this railway company in a certain direction. You start in the identity. Who are we? We are reliable. We are safe. We strive for efficiency. Yeah, we've seen statements like that in many companies, but most companies struggle to translate this into projects. And that's where capabilities come into play, because the next step is to translate it into what does it mean? Yeah. We deliver the most convenient experience for our passengers. So that means, I mark this with D here. Yeah? That means we want to be better than our competition in passenger. We don't care so much about freight trains. That's not so important for some strategic reason. Maybe we should not, it's okay if we're average there, but passenger trains, that's really where we should focus our investments. We need to be really best in class, or at least above average there. In the physical space, so we say, we provide the best experiences in the physical space. So maybe railway station services, what's going on in the railway station, cleanliness, lots of shops, passenger services in the stations are more important. We should focus here and we should invest in this capability. Maybe selling tickets via the internet is okay. We have an okay web app. It's not the best in class, but let's keep it because it's not part of our strategy. And I think that's a sound example where you can see how helpful an agreed upon capability map can be to clarify a vision statement. Yeah, so we have a vision statement. You can model it in some purpose statements, and then you look again in your map and say, that's where we need to focus. We need the best employees. We should focus on our human resource, on recruiting, maybe customer and market analysis. We want to know what our passengers. So challenge your vision statement and try to translate it in focus. What is distinctive? What makes us distinctive? Where should we invest? That's the big question here. And then we have the as-is state. So let's see, lack of current performance. Now let's see, where are we good at? Green, selling tickets. Are we already green in the web shop? Fine, we should not invest. We're already there. So focus is, where are we? Lack of current performance, time, distinctiveness. So what you really do is you look at the as is. Where are we good at? Where should we be better according to our vision statement? And then you can easily calculate a heat map and where should we need to invest. So that's an indicator. And what you get there is a lot of strategic guidance for your investment, for your governance. It's an indicator. So that means, in this operating power plants, that's transformational, because we found out for reasons we need to do the energy management by ourselves. We are not efficient enough. Of course, it's a huge investment to operate power plants, to build our own power plants and maintain them, to be a power plant operator. That's transformational. That's really a big decision, and we need to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in this capability. Why? Because it's part of our strategy. We derived it from vision, mission, strategy. We should not invest in our web shop. Minimal investments in staying minimal. And that's the perfect input for your project portfolio management. What we see in companies is with hundreds of changes, digital changes, asset changes in the railway industry, changes in the railway station, shop system, and so on. Hundreds of millions of euro are invested in a large railway company every year, of course, but not really managed, clearly traceable to who are we, what do they want, using capability maps as the translator, as something also to challenge the vision. And this type of heat mapping, we believe, is the key. Okay, then we have some Michael de Camp, if I pronounce it correctly. What is an example of performance indicator? Okay, I think maybe I was too fast here. So these could be performance indicators. Measure business continuity. Measure people topic. You measure level of automation, technical depth, how many technologies do we have, cost, efficiency. So this typical business performance indicator, that's what we mean. Okay, and then I don't think that next thing is a question. So if you have any questions, post it. Okay. All right, so okay, Michael de Camp, I'm still unsure I understand how to use activity as capability identification. Can you elaborate further? Sure. In this example here, what we see, railway infrastructure management. That means we group it together by a very broad type of objects, railway infrastructure. Management is the broadest term. If as a verb, management includes everything. So that means we made the decision, in that case, railway infrastructure drives the grouping. And then if I look closer, okay, I have planning, which is an activity. I plan railway infrastructure, and we say planning is very different from building. Makes complete sense, because I need strategic planning tools, budgeting, skills, negotiations with politics, European Union, I don't know. Planning, the activity of planning is very different from building. In building, we need builders, we need project managers, as you can see, construction, we need building, maintaining, station stack, and so on. So in this level of capabilities, you made the decision to decompose by activities. But if you go closer and look into building and maintaining, you made the intentional decision that building and maintaining stations is a very different capability from building and maintaining tracks. Otherwise, you would merge it to one capabilities. Power lines is very different. So we see it in this diagram, or procurement or logistics. Procurement, you buy from a vendors all the assets and you need in a railway company. Procurement typically is a capability that is decomposed by a specialized activity, by people who are able to buy stuff and negotiate with vendors and so on. I think that's the idea here. Okay, so we are a bit running out of time. So thank you for your attention. Maybe these are the final slides. So what we want to change really, we want to have common language. We want to bring it out of the IT ivory tower. The concept is way too precious to stay in the small enterprise business architecture ivory tower. To do that, we must speak their language. We must co-create. We must use a simpler language. We must be careful with politics. And maybe the second big topic, if only we could change the way organizations are being structured today. It's done by brute force, combination of politics and gut feelings. You need friends in higher places, and then you get in a certain position. It's not done by design, and that's the major reason why we have so many flawed organizations which are not modular, which are not adaptive. Yeah? So this combination, capability first module, organizational design second, we want to write a lot about this topic in the future, is a big statement. And if you want to learn more about EDGY, now it's time for some advert, not much, only a bit of advertisement. There's an upcoming EDGY training, January 15. So myself and Milan, the other president, we will do it together. If you want to dive deeper into the other EDGY element and see how capabilities are related to tasks and products way deeper than we talk today, and if you want to understand and learn a language that enables a co-creation process, a true co-design process, and not designed by a small enterprise architecture team, then join us in January. And there's a book, we recently updated it. If you want to learn more about how to run an enterprise design process, that's the final advertisement. Yeah. And stay in touch. I mean, Intersection is a community project. We need your feedback. We need your critical feedback. We take a lot of flack by more conventional communities. Some business architects don't like our content, but okay. So we also want to have some critical feedback. We need have some. If you want to write with us, Intersection is very much about writing. We are searching for people helping us with various topics, connecting their tools to EDGY. So if you want to stay in touch, message me on LinkedIn. We have a Slack channel, or let's meet in one of our upcoming webinars. So there will be some webinars in January. They are not online yet. Okay, I think that's it for today. I don't see any more questions. Let's stay in touch. Thank you for your attention. And yeah, hoping to see many of you in one of our next events. See you. Bye-bye.